On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, we chat with our pal Rich Stayman from Locked On NBA Big Board about picking at number 9, combine standouts, and much more as we gear up our draft coverage here on the show.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, May the 14th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can follow my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram, and you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Link in the description of the podcast. You want to come hang out? It's free to join our listener family over there on the Discord. Lots of draft talk, lots of playoff talk after last night's thrilling Denver OKC game and the Pacers getting to the conference final. Shouts to our boy Pascal Siakam. Good times all around. Let's get to it. On today's show, we're talking draft with one of our favorite draft-related guests here on the podcast. It's Rich Stayman, formerly known as Mavs Draft on the internet. We'll ask him about that whole Mavs thing as well. But mostly today, we're going to get into the flattened lottery, whether it's good or bad for teams like your humble Toronto Raptors. We'll get into guys the Raptors might be able to target at number 9 in that sort of upper crust. Could they cast a wider net and surprise? We'll get into some combine reaction as well. But let's welcome him in. Rich Stayman, Locked On NBA Big Board. How the hell are you, my friend?
A lot of mixed emotions. Obviously, I'm wearing a Vancouver Grizzlies shirt here right now, so this feels weird.
Like
I'm not playing that right, but feeling good. It's quite a clash of feelings over the last 48 hours with being a Mavs fan and them winning the lottery, but also some other stuff the last 3 months.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride for you guys. I can't say I feel like I don't feel now bad at all about the Luka Doncic trade. I'll say that. You had 4 months of plight. Don't care. You guys are going to be just fine. You just went to the finals. It all works out very well. But yeah, let's start there with the lottery. We'll get into some draft guys, but obviously you're a Mavs guy. Kind of an insane night on Monday. The Raptors dropped down, the Jazz dropped down, the Wizards dropped down, the Pelicans, the Nets. Rough stuff for the teams that really seem to want to optimize their odds in the lottery. But this is a flattened lottery world. I guess the sort of topic du jour going around league circles today is this good? Have they made a monster with these new flattened lottery odds, or are we overreacting to the worst possible outcome in the eyes of everyone but Dallas Mavericks fans and Nico Harrison and Rolando Blackman, or was it Rolando Blackman? Or I always get him and Ronaldo Balkman mixed up.
Same. I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Yeah, there we go. Either way, do you think this is good? Understanding that you come at this from a pretty biased perspective, knowing that Cooper Flagg is going to play for your team in a few months.
Yeah, I'm going to clear my name real fast. Like, I fully acknowledge how bad it looks. Like, you will never hear me be like, deal with it. Like, I'm not that kind of person. I feel like I can be pretty objective. But here's the thing is, like, with the flattened odds, it was always set up to be crazy. Like, and also the Mavs have been quite unlucky in lottery history. This is their first time ever moving up. Sure. I'm not trying to create a pity party, by the way. Like, I know, again, where they stand. But this was kind of always the thing, right? Like, if you think about it, like in 2019, the first year of the flattened lottery odds, I still remember when Rudy Gobert tweeted, he said, tanking is done. Like, this is it. Because the 7, 8, and 9 teams all had the same odds. The Mavs just lost the coin flip with all of them. It was New Orleans, Memphis, and Dallas. New Orleans and Memphis got 1 and 2. And we've seen this stuff where it's these improbable places, not just one, but we get multiple move ups. I mean, even this year, San Antonio moved up from 8 and you would barely know about it because of what happened at 1.
Totally.
Sometimes the chaos happens. I think this is just a statistical anomaly. There's probably other words you would want to use that aren't as objective as that, and I fully understand it. I will not necessarily try and argue against it, but in an actual statistical way, this isn't completely out of the ordinary. Just crazy that it happened to happen exactly how it did with the names on the cards.
This was my thing all year long when Raptors fans like, you got to lose every game. You got to lose more games. This 8-game winning streak in January is going to kill them. Like, no, like it's not, because it's a flattened lottery. And if you ran the lottery 1,000 times, then sure. But you do it one time. It's a one-time snapshot of chaos, and any of the possible outcomes that are on the board can happen. And so here's the thing is I like that the teams that tanked the most shamelessly, the Jazz, the Nets by the end, the Wizards, I like that this system does not just hand out high picks to them willy-nilly. I like that they're not rewarded for totally not fielding competitive teams and sitting Larry Markkinen for half the season because he's quote unquote hurt. Like, I think this is ultimately a better way to do it than just giving the high picks to the lower seeded teams. That said, I'm not a fool. I think maybe the sort of intention of the flattened lottery was to prevent full on tanking. It has clearly not done that. Maybe results like this will start to curtail it as time goes on, as teams adapt and sort of get a wider scope of, okay, now we have 5-6 years that kind of prove if you're the worst team in the league, you're probably picking fifth, man. Like, this is just kind of how it's going. And so I think it's ultimately over time going to bear better results. But in the moment, I don't think it's curtailed tanking. I think it's actually probably incentivized teams on the fringes of the playoffs to say, do we really want to be in the play-in and get waxed in the first round by some team? Like, I think that's a problem for sure. And there's hopefully ways they can go and address that, player participation policies, etc. But grand scheme, I still like that the Jazz didn't just get the first pick after being the most shameless tanking team you'll ever see. And so, yeah, ultimately the Raptors obviously get the raw end of the deal in this one. They fall from 7 to 9. Let's get into the Raptors side of things here, Rich. So, look, I think a lot of Raptors fans are feeling a little bit stung this week, a little bit, oh man, they could have gained so much had they moved up in the lottery with the way their team is set up. A talent infusion would have been amazing. Obviously, it's a bit of a different story picking ninth than it is in the top four. If you're, let's just say, I'm not terribly concerned, but say I was a very concerned, sad Raptors fan in the dumps today, what kind of copium would you sell me? How are you selling me on the ninth pick actually being a good place to pick? What you got for me?
Yeah, I mean, this is actually one of the easiest ones, I think. You guys aren't as hurt, I think, as it's made out to be. Yes, you'd always rather have a higher pick and have more players to choose from, but I've been preaching this since, for background, I've studied these classes since probably early 2023. So, I mean, we're going on since most of their sophomore to junior seasons of high school. So I know a lot of these players, and that's what a lot of the top is. There's obviously a few exceptions, like Collin Murray-Boyles in this range, right? He's not a freshman, but otherwise every other player is a freshman in the lottery range. I mean, it's pretty deep. So I would say that the ranges from after the fourth, maybe fifth pick, that's where the next tier break is. They're kind of picking from the same players anyways. I mean, I think 6 through, I'd say 17, I have pretty much all on one tier. And if they're on a different tier, it's like an A and B tier of the same number, if that makes sense, like 2A, 2B kind of thing.
That's very encouraging. I want to kind of dig into that a little bit more with you, Rich. We'll come back on the other side. I want to hear from you. Who do you have at 9? And then I'll list off some guys who I would love for them to be there at 9 for the Raptors. We'll dig into some scouting on some of these dudes. We'll also talk some combine stuff as we get further into the show. We'll do all that coming up here in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Wayfair. The days are getting longer, the weather is warming up, and people are spending more time outside, baby. That's me. I have done my backyard duty. I've cleaned the garden. I've mopped up and swept up the branches and leaves and everything. Cleared a little squirrel's nest out of my little outside seating area. It's a great thing, and boy, oh boy, is it nice sitting on some cool furniture. If you need some cool furniture, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you in your outdoor space. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup, from comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor. They've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. The delivery is free and hassle-free as well, even for the big stuff. Whether you're entertaining guests or just relaxing solo, shop Wayfair to help you unwind. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Back at it here with Rich Stayman from Locked On NBA Big Board, formerly Mavs Draft, longtime recurring guest here on the podcast, one of our faves who knows his stuff. Let's get to that 9th overall pick we were talking about before the break. The Toronto Raptors hold it Who do you have right now, Rich, as number 9 on your personal board going into this draft? Obviously subject to change as we're still well over a month out from draft night.
Yeah, I've got Collin Murray-Boyles out of
Okay.
South Carolina. If you want, I can just give a quick little
Please, because this is a guy who, I've not been focused on because I was just wish casting and hoping, all right, they're going to pick top 7 and top 7. I've been kind of focusing on 7, 8, maybe 9 guys in my coverage. Collin Murray-Boyles hasn't quite crept in there, but please tell me all about him because I know there's a lot of Raptors fans out there, especially in the Locked On Raptors Discord, who are big CMB heads.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. One, I trend to follow, this is just a general guideline, not why I have him here, but just some background. I trend to follow a lot of how draft Twitter varies from the NBA teams and the consensus boards, which I would say really are Tankathon is pretty consensus. I do trackers on that stuff and they're right in the middle. Same with ESPN. They're trying to predict draft night. So they're both going to be very consensus. Collin Murray-Boyles is probably the single player that draft Twitter is higher on than most.
Gotcha.
And I think there is a lot of truth to that where it's NBA teams don't value what draft Twitter values, right? They have completely different priorities and they're drafting on blank slate, which no team is like a whole league overview of will they work, will they won't. So with Collin Murray-Boyles, my sell pretty much is this. He's an elite defender at about 6'8". I can't remember exactly how he measured, but I know he measured long.
Like 6'6" and a half he came in. 6'6" and a half with a 7 inch 3/4, 7 foot 3/4 inch wingspan.
Yeah. So plus 6 wingspan. Let's call him 6'7" and a half when he's in shoes, right? So for me, you have somebody who's 100% versatile where he truly can play the 1 through 5. And if you say, hey, 6'7", he really can't. Draymond Green does it and he's actually smaller. So there's I think a lot of that on defense, not saying he's 1-to-1 with Draymond, but there are a lot of overlaps, right? Significant, just outstanding passing mind, just brilliant basketball feel. I think it didn't get to shine at South Carolina because he didn't really have much talent there. They won their first conference game almost in March. So that team just wasn't set up to maximize his basketball IQ. But he's also growing as a shooter. And when you have elite defense at an unbelievably 10 out of 10 versatility, and then on top of that, you have a great basketball mind, you're probably going to get multiple assists a game, 3+ at the minimum, probably as a rookie. And you have shooting upside. That's a really, really good player. And I think that's why so much of draft Twitter likes him more than the NBA teams. I think he's somebody that right away, especially you look at what Toronto's done with versatility in the past, it's a really good fit.
Right. So I'm a little torn on this because, I haven't done a ton of watching a film of Murray-Boyles. I've read the stats, I've read the scouting report, stuff like that. I'm a little bit concerned about the overlap with Scotty Barnes, who's a very similar type of player. And I think the bet on the 3-point shooting with Collin Murray-Boyles, if you're betting on it, I think you better be damn sure if you're drafting him to the Toronto Raptors. This is a team that already has a pretty light on shooting front court with Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. Maybe there's a bounce back for Barnes in a lesser burdensome offensive role than he had this year. Maybe he leans less into the pull-ups. Hopefully the catch and shoot stuff comes back, although that was, I think, even more concerning than his lack of pull-up juice this year was he just kind of couldn't hit catch and shoots either. So that's an alarming thing. And if you're drafting a guy who ostensibly comes in as your top prospect and he overlaps so much with your best player in terms of skills and weaknesses, I think that might be a recipe to just kind of not to get the most out of the guy. So talk me into the shooting a little bit, because if the shooting's there, if there's real shooting upside, then count me in. I'm a Vision 6'9" truther. I love all the big springy toolsy wings you could possibly put together. I think that's great and super fun to watch. But if there's not enough shooting, I think you see the limitations of that in the playoffs, things like that. I do think we're seeing teams get by with less shooting maybe than they were 5-6 years ago during the height of the Warriors, but still, it's clearly very important. The Pacers are about to be in the conference finals because everyone can shoot. And so with Collin Murray-Boyles, talk me into the shooting being a thing, because 26% on one attempt a game this past season after not hitting any threes in his freshman year, that leaves me a little bit concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one other thing real fast is, you had mentioned, with obviously Scotty Barnes, right? I get the concern fully there. I fully hear that. I actually think the more overlap is with Jonathan Bobo, right? I think he's I think the bigger overlap there, where they're both they're forwards. They're not quite a center, if you will, but they don't shoot much, and they can play make and they can defend. So I think that's actually where I would be like, there is some overlap. How much do you buy into, whichever one of them you want to choose? Now, with
to be clear,
Murray-Boyles,
I like Mobo, but I'm not making decisions with Mobo in mind because he's still so raw. And was pretty incomplete as a player,
exactly.
Right? So, yeah,
exactly. That's where I'm kind of like, are you going to make decisions based on that? Right. And I don't know. So myself with Collin Murray-Boyles, I hear you with the 26% from three. I get that. And 70% from the line. But so I use the AAU numbers a lot as rather than like the club season, like in high school, because some of these guys play public schools. Some of them play basically pre-college, I would call it, competition, like Montfort, the elite of the elite, right? Collin Murray-Boyles, so in Adidas, he wasn't shooting threes. He had 4 of 16 from three in his last year. This was in 2023. He went 51% from the line. It was bad. Last year, which is the following year, obviously, he went 0 of 5 from three, so even less threes. He went 66.7% from the free throw line on 87 attempts. This year, he took 34 threes. That's a big jump. And he made only 9, right? So it's not there yet, but also he got to the line a ton. He took over 100 more free throws and got it up to 70.7, which is, I think once you hit 70, for somebody who has a reputation as not being a shooter, it goes a really long way. So I buy the trend of it going up and up, and the work ethic is there. Like if you read up about any of that, it's very clear. So I do buy him going as a shooter down the road. Now, how good it gets, I don't know, but I think he can be respectable.
Interesting. Let's pivot to a couple of guys who I've kind of highlighted as my sort of dream. If they fall to the Raptors at 9, I am happy as a clam. Number 1 is Khaman Maluach. I have been a Maluach head for the last many, many months. I think I'm one of the higher people on him generally. I think I have him at number 3 on my board. I just think there's no way he doesn't end up being an excellent defender in the NBA with that combination of size and mobility. Obviously, questions about the offense, about the feel, about the passing, things like that. But the lob finishing is there. I know there's all kinds of talk of, could he step out from 3? That's a bonus if it all hits. I would be over the moon if he was the guy at 9. I think size is such a clear need for this team. I think a long-term succession plan for Jakob Poeltl is an important thing for them to get on as well here, with him just having a couple years left on his deal. I mean, potentially he could opt out after next year. We'll see. Maybe they extend him this summer. I don't know. But I think having a long-term plan behind Poeltl, who's going to be 30, is not a bad idea. Maluach for me is right near the top of my list if he falls to 9. Where do you have him, and do you share my extreme Maluach optimism?
Yeah, I still am a Maluach fan, even though I have him at 14. It's more about the draft class and the interchangeability, I would say, of the draft. It's more, there are issues where I think he's 100% a guy who gets on the court. My question with him is just what does his playoff impact look like down the road? Does the field concerns get, is that something that bites him eventually? Who knows? And that's more my concern for putting a few other guys on him. I would say same thing I said about Collin Murray-Boyles, where it may not be necessarily the roster fit. Now, obviously, Maluach it actually is more of, but the identity fit is definitely there, where you look at the kind of players that they've developed. I think if the Raptors were able to develop, obviously different coaching staffs and stuff, but if they were able to develop like Chris Boucher's shot, Maluach's shot is going to work. Like that's something I feel very confident in saying. If he went to Toronto, I would fully invest in the jump shot. So my 2 things, though, of why he would be a good fit and why I do pretty much echo what you say is think about the Duke bigs. I mean, one in particular, right? Derek Lively. All the stuff, the feel, people are like, is he actually like that smart of a basketball player there? Like, everything was hidden. And I think that might just be starting to be the new Kentucky guards, as Duke centers. And I think that has to be accounted for, because now Derek Lively, I think he's, again, a little bit biased here, but I think he's one of the smartest bigs in the NBA for his age, right? So I think with Maluach, there are some field concerns and things like that. And I don't like the perimeter defense, but man, like size gets you on the court. And when you can do everything well, he shot 71% from the field. Like that's something that keeps you on the floor. Like at least early on, what he does in the playoffs, that depends on growth, but right away he's got a spot.
Yeah, I'm very much in on Khaman Maluach. Let's quickly hit on Jeremiah Fears because he's another guy. If we're talking like upside swings, he feels like he's pretty polarizing, and the sort of the upside for him is, he could be like your lead creator if everything really breaks right. If things don't break right, oh God, this guy's going to be a train wreck. The kind of guy who maybe plays himself out of the league pretty quickly. The shooting obviously is a concern. I kind of buy it with the free throw shooting and the mid-range touch that the three-point shot's going to come along. The rim pressure is there. The rim finishing is not. Where are you at with Jeremiah Fears? Because he is also on that list. Him and Maluach are the two guys where if they're there at 9, I'm pretty thrilled if the Raptors end up taking them.
Yeah, I've got him 5. I mean, I'm right there with you, man. Like, think about his role. He took more off the dribble jumpers than he did catch and shoot. I mean, to me, this is the most ridiculous stat. So he took 73 off the dribble threes. He shot 20%. Not good from 3. Fully acknowledge the results weren't there. I do think that is something he still grows into. He took 60 off the dribble 2s. He was actually pretty efficient. He almost shot 50%. Like, I mean, we're talking about 4 more makes and he was at 50. And like, that is pretty promising. That pull-up game is good. It's just, he's 18. He's one of the youngest players in the draft. I can't remember if it's him or Cooper, but those are the two that are the two youngest.
It's like those two and Noah Senge, I think, are all very, very
correct.
similar. Yeah.
Correct. And for me, when you're that young, a lot of that gets a pass. On the catch and shoot, 36% on catch and shoot threes. He didn't get a lot of opportunities to be a catch and shoot guy. And yeah, the rim numbers aren't great. I get it, 52%, but again, like he's another guy where it's like, look at the high school stuff, man. He was really good in that regard. Again, the jump shot wasn't that efficient, but he was taking more off the dribble shots and everything. And I think he's somebody that he just scales up with age. He's basically playing a year up, right? He should be about to be talking about in the 2026 draft. And I buy the playmaking. I really do buy the all-around game, and I think the processes are there. The results will catch up.
Yeah, pretty into Fears, man. Also, Jeremiah Fears. It needs to be said, one of the all-time great. That guy's going to be a star-ass names you could possibly conjure up. We're going to come back on the other side here, Rich. Close it out. We want to talk about some combine guys who stood out with their measurements. We're going to talk about arms in the form of Rasheer Fleming and some other guys coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by friends over at Car Guru. Shopping for a car should be exciting, but it's kind of not these days. It's hard to find used cars. They're very expensive because of, geopolitics, et cetera, et cetera. It can feel very overwhelming. That's why I love using Car Gurus. They help you cut through the noise and show you the best deals with full confidence. With over 4 million listings, Car Gurus has more new and used cars than any major online marketplace in the U.S. They verify dealers, provide real price analysis, and give you the tools and data you need to make the right choice without second guessing yourself. Plus, the in-depth vehicle details give you peace of mind before stepping onto any lot. You got to know what's going on with the car. You got to have the history of the car to make a good purchase. That is what Car Gurus is going to give to you. It's no wonder SimilarWeb estimated traffic data shows Car Gurus is the #1 most visited car shopping site. Buy or sell your next car today with Car Gurus at cargurus.com. That's cargurus.com to make sure your big deal is the best deal. That's cargurus.com, cargurus.com. Go check them out. Wrapping it up here, the NBA Combine is ongoing in Chicago this week. All kinds of posts about how long the teens' arms are, baby. That's where we are in the draft cycle. Let's get into some standouts from the Combine so far. I want to hear if anyone's kind of popped for you, a guy who's got a real eye for this stuff. But one guy who seems to performed damn well is a guy who has interested me as a very Raptors-coded type prospect all season long. Rasheer Fleming out of St. Joe's this season really kind of took off. He shot 39% on 4.5 threes a game. He put up 14 a game. He shot 65% nearly on twos after shooting 66% on twos the season prior. Seems like a wonderful play finisher. Lots of questions about his handle and whatnot. It makes sense he has a hard time dribbling the basketball because his wingspan is 7'5" as measured at the Combine. Rasheer Fleming, Rich, maybe a little rich for the Raptors' blood, no pun intended, at number 9, just because of the sort of lack of on-ball creation juice. But I don't know, man. That level of shooting and length feels like an NBA player who's going to be around for a very, very long time. Give me the goods on Rasheer Fleming and whether you think there's a fit there with the Raptors at 9.
Yeah, he's somebody that I've talked to a lot of NBA scouts that are pretty polarized on him. He's an interesting player, though, where he doesn't shoot off the dribble. Like you kind of hinted at, the dribble game is not there. He's grown a lot as a shooter, but still leaves a little bit to be desired. The wingspan, I think, is going to start when you I knew his arms were long. I knew it was over 7 feet, fine. But 7'5", that really changes how you look at it. Cause that's a center's wingspan. There are multiple centers who measured at 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. You probably think about him before as a 4. Now you're let's just envision him as a 5 and say, play defense, facilitate as needed, and shoot. It's a pretty good center.
Yeah. It's kind of like if Jonathan Mobo could shoot a little bit almost, although the passing obviously maybe not quite. Mobo's a damn good passer, so give him the edge there probably. But yeah, that combination of size and shooting feels extremely NBA friendly. Is there anyone for you that stood out? Someone who maybe over the course of this week with just the measurements that have come out, the athletic testing, that's maybe kind of gone up in your rankings to maybe nudge into that later lottery area where the Raptors are going to be picking?
Yeah, I don't think he did anything different. And honestly, 9 is still too high. But if you trade it back to the very, very end of the lottery, I think someone like Neat Clifford could be interesting.
Sure.
He is very much a Josh Hart clone. And I don't know if you subscribe to this kind of belief, but I do, which is that every team needs a Josh Hart on them, on their team to really it's not always a Josh Hart 1-to-1, but that scrappy player who comes out from nowhere, gets you 8 rebounds a game when he should only be averaging 3 or 4. And makes a lot of plays, doesn't necessarily shoot well, but he knows how to make up for it in every single way. And I think Neat Clifford is 100% the guy who fits that profile.
Yeah, he seemed like a guy who a contending team is going to take, or a good team is going to take and just slot right into the rotation immediately. He's going to be very good. I think for the Raptors at 9, maybe that doesn't quite match what you're looking for in terms of an upside play there, as this is probably the highest pick they're going to have for a little while if things break right for them going into next year and they get the help from Ingram and everything like that, and they kind of win how I think they think they're going to win. But yeah, he's going to be a good NBA player, it feels like. Let's help me out here. So again, I've focused largely on the top 8 to 10 guys in this draft so far, kind of wish casting and hoping. Of course, we know the Raptors, they don't much care for consensus. They're going to take their guy and say, screw you if you disagree. We're going to take Pascal Siakam when no one's heard of him. We're going to take Scotty Barnes ahead of Jalen Suggs, even though everyone's going to get mad at us, that type of thing. So, they could very well take one of these consensus top 10-ish guys who just happens to be there and falls to them, and they just take the best guy on the board. Or they could go do some Raptors stuff and take a guy out of nowhere. Help me out here a little, Rich. Give me some names to kind of keep an eye on who might kind of fit this bill. One guy who comes to mind for me is Maxime Reynaud, just talking long-term centers, shot pretty well from 3 this season at Stanford. Obviously, they weren't a great team or anything like that, but he's big. He seems to have some ball skill and some, just kind of that connective tissue as a big man. There's other guys as well. But yeah, give me some sort of sleeper potential guys who could creep into that range for the Raptors at 9 if they decide to cast a wider net.
Yeah, I'll kind of toot my own horn here and then move away from it, making it about me. But one of the guys I've been high on since November, I've had him top 30, and I've been moving him up every single time I update my board, is Yaxel Lendenborg. He most famously missed a 5x5 by 1 block in the conference tournament opener. I don't want to butcher the stats because they're too good to mess up, but so I'm pulling it up. He had against East Carolina, I know it's not the craziest competition, but in the conference tournament, he had 30 points, 20 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, 4 blocks, 0 turnovers on 9 of 16 shooting. And he is somebody that really, once that happened, everybody was like, okay, this is a guy. He really is a prospect. He had already been flirting with triple doubles, right? Being this playmaker, growing shooter, really good defender. Then he measures at 6'8.5" barefoot with a 7'4" wingspan. He's playing in the combine scrimmages Wednesday and Thursday, potentially Thursday. I think he's the guy that screams like a Jalen Williams on this. Right. And because of that, I think he's somebody that you look at a riser, you look at somebody that they say Toronto, again, like you said, doesn't follow the consensus. He kind of fits everything that a Toronto forward should be. He plays defense. Yeah. He really does everything. And I think that would be my candidate.
I like it. Yaxel Lendenborg, also very good name. This is a good name draft.
Dude,
man.
Yaxel,
this is obviously the most important thing.
Yeah, I'm a name truther too. Like, I think you can tell a lot about a prospect without knowing a thing about them. Like, if you're listening and you don't know any of these guys, like I'm telling you, you will hit over 50% based on name.
I'm telling you, man, there's skeptics out there who don't think the name thing is real, but it is. Like, I'm sorry, he might have a great combine, but someone named Cedric Coward? Coward? I don't know, man. I don't know. A little concerned. It's like Johnny Furphy. You sure about that? Anyway, Rich, you gotta split, so we're gonna wrap this up. Thanks so much for being on the show, man. Always a pleasure to have you. Hopefully, we can do it again before the draft if you're game. My very noob ass questions for you. It's always a pleasure. Where can people check out your work?
Yeah, NBA Big Board, Locked On NBA Big Board, and I also do stuff in No Ceilings. So those are the two.
Awesome. We love the No Ceilings guys. Go check out all of that wonderful work, and we will talk to you again very soon. We'll be back on Thursday. We might be talking about a Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby conference finals matchup on Thursday. That's going to be a Katie Heindel episode if there ever was one. So keep an eye out for that. Looking forward to it. Thanks so much for hanging. And in the meantime, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, all that good stuff. And we'll talk to you very, very soon. You're all the best. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Buckets.